Twitter, LinkedIn, the search engine Google. Many of the world's largest companies claim that they owe their success to the OKR methodology. Today, in 15, well, maybe 20 minutes, I'll tell you how to take over the world, or at least your business, using OKRs. My name is Maciej Durczak, and this is the Sales Insiders podcast. Let's get started. All right, so let's start with what OKRs actually are. OKRs are a goal management methodology. OKR. It stands for Objective and Key Results. If you were to ask me why you should manage goals, the answer is simple: to deliver results. If you look at companies, those that are better organized, they usually have some kind of vision. I don't really like the word vision. I call it the ultimate goal of the organization, meaning the place we want to reach someday. For example, we want to be the producer of the best hair dryers in the world. Dyson? And at some point we start somewhere, but eventually we want to become the best hairdryer manufacturer in the world. To achieve this vision and our ultimate goal, we need a strategy. And here's where the whole problem arises, because a company's strategy, a good strategy, if someone knows how to do it, can be built in 2 days. However, executing that strategy takes place 365 days a year. If you wanted to say that's not true, because after all, even if we don't work on Saturdays and Sundays, believe me, senior managers are still intensely thinking on those days about how to achieve their goals. Exactly. I don't want to downplay the importance of strategy because, as I said, it can be implemented in 2 days. I don't want to downplay them because we ourselves are also involved in strategic management. We support companies in these areas, organize workshops, and help companies build their own strategies. However, thank you. Execution and delivering on all of this is significantly more difficult. That is, a strategy without OKRs is a bit like a New Year's resolution. That is, the year begins and let's say we buy a gym membership. In January we go intensively. I know this myself because for many years I went to the gym and I know what gyms look like in January. I know what they look like in February. I know what they look like in March, and by April everything is already back to normal. And it's similar in many businesses. That is, we organize ourselves, we build some kind of strategy for the company, but we lack the power to keep the teams motivated to achieve and implement our strategic goals throughout all 12 months of the year. Usually after 2 or 3 months, everything falls apart. We decide that the strategy was stupid and pointless, and we say that because we weren't able to implement it. There is usually some inertia in the organization that makes implementing these changes difficult. And OKRs are meant to help with that. OKRs are meant to help deliver results. So let's break them down to their basics. OKRs, as I said, stand for Objective Key Results. Objective means goal, key result, key result. What are goals? A goal, simply put, is what we want to deliver and achieve at a specific stage. What should a goal be like? A goal should, above all, be easy to understand, easy to remember, inspiring. Ideally, it should be inspiring, and it should be ambitious. That's as far as goals are concerned. I've prepared some simple examples of goals to achieve, one for a sales manager and another for an IT manager. First example: increase the team's efficiency and productivity in acquiring new clients. Can this be a goal? It can. Second example for an IT manager, in this case a help desk manager: significantly improve user satisfaction with help desk service and improve the problem-solving process. Can this be a goal? It can be a goal. If you want to say that these goals are a bit too soft, you're right, but not entirely. That is, they can be like that. It's more precise when it comes to key results. Key results. What is that? A key result is an outcome. It's the result of our actions. That is, we do something, we perform some work, and it produces a certain result. And the results that are most important to us, we call key results. What should a key result be like? Above all, it should be specific, time-bound, and measurable. Specific and measurable, what does that mean? Because making it time-bound is fairly easy. We know when we want to achieve something. However, being specific and measurable means that it's either a metric or it's binary. That is, we've either done something or we haven't. There's no room here for key results to be in any way vague or soft. When it comes to goals, let's go back to them for a moment. If they are vague, that implies a certain problem. Namely, it's hard to achieve them using key results. To make this very simple for you, if you have several key results, then completing all the key results should automatically mean that your goal is achieved. That is, we accomplish several things, and these things automatically ensure that the goal is achieved. There's no other way. And that's quite difficult when it comes to defining goals. You'll have to work on this. You need to rewrite the key results so that they automatically accomplish your goal. All right, since I'm giving you examples for goals, I'll also give you examples for key results using that first example where we talked about what a goal for a sales manager might be. And here we have several key results. For example, increase the number of contracts signed by the team with new clients by 20% from X to Y. Shorten the average sales cycle for new clients by 15%, which in this case means we want to fit more sales processes into a given period of time. Increase the lead conversion rate from 10% to 15%. I'm just giving an example. But notice that each of these key results has specific metrics assigned to it, and this is very important, very significant. And that's basically it when it comes to objectives and key results. However, you might ask, because this question often comes up during various OKR workshops and trainings, how do KPIs fit into all this? Well, it's actually very simple. KPIs or key performance indicators are metrics that define the performance of certain processes, but what's very important, they do so for the past. As I mentioned at the beginning, we want to get somewhere. That is, we have our ultimate goal that we're striving for. We have a strategy understood as a set of various policies and actions that are supposed to help us get there. And these act as a lever to help us do it faster and more efficiently. And we have objectives which are and key results that we want to check off along the way. But notice that all of this refers to the future. That is, we are moving forward. For us, KPIs are always behind us. KPIs show us how we have performed in various areas, and we can analyze this for the future. We can't analyze in advance what will happen in the future because we don't have the data yet. It will only happen, and then we'll be able to look back again. KPI. It's a very important distinction that OKRs always look forward, and that's something to remember. And this makes it quite easy for us to distinguish OKRs from KPIs. So if I were to visualize this for you, and I usually do this during trainings, if I can find that slide, I'll show it to you, and now you can see it on the screen. Imagine that our ultimate goal is a distant island. We're sailing our ship, and our ultimate goal is to reach that island and gather an awesome crew. Really great people. But along the way, we have to pick them up from several different islands. And those islands are our key results that we encounter along the way, and some goals that we still want to check off. And these are, let's say, signposts and places that we have to check off one by one to get closer to our ultimate goal. That's how we visualize it. If you were to ask where the KPIs fit into all of this, the KPIs would be like the dashboard on our ship, a control panel that shows us all the performance factors of our ship. Do we have enough fuel? Is nothing overheating? Is everything working and in order? So it's grounded in the present or in the past when examining what's happening on our deck, but it doesn't look into the future. Okay, that's good. So now let's move on to some practical aspects. How to set OKRs in your organization. First of all, before we start, we need to agree on some cycles. That is, when we enter a new year, we set our strategic goals for the entire year. And what's very important, it's hard to get started. It's difficult to work with OKRs if we have a company strategy. That's because strategic goals, as the name suggests, stem from the organization's strategy. So if we have a strategy, we have our ultimate goal, and we know where we're heading, then we can set our OKRs for the whole year. So we have certain things in place. This question often comes up here. What if we set quarterly cycles? In our organizations, we usually work in quarterly cycles, meaning we set OKRs for a quarter. But that doesn't mean they have to be fully completed within that quarter. That is, we have an implementation project that, let's say, lasts 8 months, and we know what should happen in each quarter, one after another. So we break down these goals into specific quarters. And now we have goals to achieve within 12 months, strategic goals, and we know what should happen in each quarter. And that's how we break it down. We annually arrange our specific goals into structured quarters for our managers, and we work in these regular operational cycles. What's very important is that we set them for the year and for the quarters, but we monitor them more frequently. Most often, we monitor them every 2 weeks. We hold individual meetings with managers and with people who have OKRs assigned to them. As for meetings with the whole team, these usually also take place every 2 weeks or once a month, and then we go through these OKRs together. And often team members present what's happening on their end. Why is this important? It's important so that teams know what's happening within the organization so they can exchange information, and very importantly, so they can channel their efforts. This is an additional advantage of OKRs that I haven't mentioned because there wasn't really time for it, and I didn't focus much on the benefits of OKRs. But notice that in organizations, it's often the case that people duplicate their work on tasks. That is, 2 or even 3 teams are working on the same thing. We had such a case when we wanted to organize our cooperation with our partners better, and we were changing the contracts we sign with our partners. and one manager responsible for the Czech Republic and Slovakia was working on this project. Another was independently working in the Baltic countries, and the third in Hungary. It was only the OKRs when we did a review that revealed that these people were actually duplicating their work, so I'll finish here. We channeled their efforts, and in reality, this work could have been done 3 times faster because 3 people were doing it. They divided the tasks among themselves and later only adjusted them to the market realities, since in fact 3/4 of the agreement was the same. This is a practical example that shows how OKRs work. They channel the organization's efforts and help in the long run to achieve our strategic goals. And not only that, all right, moving on. It works like this. Once we have these cycles established from the top and everyone knows how we operate, before the start of each new cycle, the manager meets with their employee and they discuss specific OKRs. What's very important is that it has to start at the very top. That is, the company president, the management board publishes their goals for the given quarter and consults them with their employees, and from the top down. It trickles down, but what's also very important is that it goes upward from the bottom as well. This is because at least 40% of goals in the OKR methodology should come from the bottom up. That means people bring their own ideas. We never go below that 40%, and often it's much more. Sometimes it even happens that 100% of the goals come from the employees themselves. Because if we know the company's strategy, we know what needs to be accomplished, we know what the strategic goals are. And when an employee or manager comes with their own goals, I always say that's exactly what we're doing. And that's basically where it ends, the conversation. The details are usually related to the key results, meaning what outcomes we want to achieve in a given quarter. Here, there are often negotiations whether we move something to the next quarter or if it should happen in this quarter. That's what we discuss, but when it comes to strategic goals, we discuss them rather rarely. The second important thing is that there should be only 3 to 5 goals in one cycle, not more. And I mean goals in general, not just strategic ones, because not all of them are strategic. Why? Because when I start working with a less experienced manager and talk to them about their OKRs, I always ask them one question when they don't know what to put in their OKRs. I ask the question, what is important for you and for the company this quarter? Important. And then this question really opens their mind and they start to think, okay, I wrote this down, but it's not really important for the company. And it's not really important from a strategic point of view. Because often people like to put on their OKRs things they'd like to do but haven't had time for, so they think, okay, I'll write this down, it'll motivate me. But in reality, it's not really that important for the company. So we focus on what is important. I want to emphasize this again. What is important from the organization's perspective and in terms of achieving strategic goals. That's why there should never be more than 5 of these goals. We are very strict about this because if you add 6, 7, or 8, then which one is actually important? If we have 6, 7, 8, or even 12, then in reality, none of them are important. That's why we have this limit of 5 goals, because we want to focus on them. And I often tell the people I work with, if you want to pursue some initiative, 6, 7, or 8 of them, no problem. Of course, you can do it, but let's just not include it in the OKR because we don't consider it truly important for us, just as I told you earlier. And this is something people often get caught up on. Key results must serve the objective. It's very important that if we check off all the key results, the objective must automatically be achieved. And there's one more thing that we do. We divide objectives into what we call committed and aspirational. So these are aspirational goals, things we'd like to accomplish, projects we find really exciting and are passionate about. It's easy to come up with inspiring things here, but if we don't manage to achieve them, nothing major will happen. And the second type are the goals we commit to, because if we don't deliver on them, there could be consequences. We simply mark these in the table as A and as C. And we describe these goals in such a way that we know exactly what to focus on 100%, because those marked as C, meaning committed, are really crucial to deliver in a given cycle. Importantly, if a cycle ends within a given quarter, it doesn't mean that all the goals within it have to be completed exactly at the end of the quarter. We have an additional table that defines the deadline for each item. All right, there are still a lot of details here, a lot of tips and tricks. You could talk about this for hours because it's only when you start doing it in practice that you realize it's not as simple as it seems. Give yourself time. The first cycle, the second cycle, which is actually half a year. In our case, it was about training, learning, gaining some understanding of this, and also giving people a sense of what they can enter there and when they might be overdoing it, so that as an organization, we could sense that. In every organization, it works a little differently. I recommend distributing this from the top down, meaning first the top management, then middle managers, and only then do we roll it out further down. This gives the organization time to get used to it and allows the people at the top to get trained as well, how to define these goals, how to describe key results. They also learned some cool softer things. For example, we always describe key results in the past tense. That means I have already done it. And that's something we pay close attention to because there's also a psychological aspect to it. Later at the end of the quarter, when we check, read, and describe how many percent we managed to achieve in which range, which we consider a success, then we read to ourselves, yes, I did it, I accomplished it, or maybe not. So that's also quite an important tip. But there are really a lot of these tips. Don't get discouraged if your first or second cycle doesn't work out, because that's quite natural. They actually have to fail. That's just the way it is by nature. From the third cycle on, it works better. We've been working with OKRs for several years now, and believe me, it really helps deliver results. The last and most important thing I wanted to end today's podcast with is transparency, and that's the coolest thing. With OKRs, it means you have top management, you have the company president, board members, directors, top management, and their goals are transparent. That is, once we set the OKRs and agree on them between teams, we know, yes, we are committed to what we are delivering in a given quarter, and we publish these OKRs publicly for the entire company. And this is truly a game changer because if you look at the research, studies show that people who join a company and know to what extent they contribute to the company's success, what the company is striving for, why they are working, and what greater goal they are achieving, are simply more efficient in their work. Maybe I'll show you a screenshot because I recently read somewhere that several dozen% of people in Poland don't know why. They come to work and have no idea what they're actually doing there or how what they do helps the company achieve any goals at all. When we have this awareness, working becomes much easier for us. Secondly, we channel our efforts better. As I mentioned, people often see that they can help each other out somewhere, and in some ways they duplicate each other's work, so it's easier to cooperate with them. For managers, on the other hand, it's easier to, in a way, force people to cooperate because in our company, goals are always interconnected. That is, if we have a strategic goal, it is divided among people in such a way that it essentially forces them to cooperate. And it does so in a really cool way. It truly streamlines the way we work within the organization. So this transparency is really a game changer. The fact that everyone in the company knows what we're aiming for, why we're doing it, and what we expect. At the end of the quarter, we do a check and see whether this direction was right and whether we should continue. There's still a lot more because I haven't told you that OKRs can change over time. If the business environment or other factors change, we can adjust them halfway through the cycle. I could probably talk about this for much longer, but I wanted to wrap up with transparency because it really is very, very important. Remember, OKRs shouldn't just be public, they must be open and transparent to the entire organization. That's all from me. See you in the next Sales Insiders podcast. Talk to you soon. Bye.